Welcome to Straight Talking with Kelly, where real conversations happen. This is where you'll meet the most talented, intelligent, and creative people who come to share tips, resources, and knowledge on various topics. The guests come from a magnitude of industries that include education, music, television, culinary arts, fashion, and so much more. Join me in welcoming my guest, Paul Gallo. He's a career artist, fashion designer, and instructor. Hey, Paul.
Hi, Kelly.
How are you?
I'm happy to be here with
Good.
you and talk about stuff.
Yeah, well, welcome.
Thank
And I'm really excited to let the audience know a little bit about you. So, before we talk about your prestigious career in the fashion industry and your new release of your coloring book entitled My Sketchpad is the Safest Place on Earth, let me give the audience some of your background. While attending the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, the focus became leather clothing. This resulted in a collaboration with a classmate named Tony Shannon. They sold at New York Fashion Week under the label Shannon Gallo Skinwear. Paul moved to San Francisco and started his own label under the business name California. In 2019, Get a Grip sewing clips revolutionized the sewing industry, which is true. We'll talk about that later.
you.
It was Paul's invention that was used in place of pens. They are available now through a license from Dritz.com. Teaching illustration and clothing design for over 35 years has been a deep commitment for Paul. Now, Paul, let's walk down memory lane a little bit.
Okay.
So I have known you. Paul is a colleague of mine, and he's been teaching at City College for at least 18 years out of my 21 years. Paul
Yeah.
and I have been on the, the hiring committee together forever. It's like they can't find nobody else with us, right? And I think because we're so good at it.
We have done that a lot and we are good at it.
Yes, we are good at it. And I love doing it because I get to meet all of the incredible instructors and I take their classes.
True.
Interesting thing, and I've taken Paul's classes, you guys. I've taken his draping class. I've taken his pants making class. Matter of fact, I have on a pair of jeans that I've made from your class. Thank
That's
you very much. So yeah, Paul is definitely an incredible instructor. So when Paul was launching his Get a Grip clips, he was like, Kelly, if I could get into Britex, man, that would really launch me. And I
yeah.
said, well, come on down. So I took him to Britex, introduced him to one of my contacts, and they put his clips in the store. And I'm going to tell you something, you guys. Those clips are the best when you're sewing leather, pleather, vinyl, silk, anything that you don't want pin marks in, these clips. And interestingly enough, Paul, once your clips got out in the market, then all these copycatters came along.
Oh, they did. I mean, everybody has their own version now. And when Clover Clips came out, there's something called like impotent to the customer base when you have something new, a new product. So when we were doing the thing about the sewing clips, they were like, but you're going to have to convince an entire industry that uses pins to try something else. And I said, but you don't have any idea how much people hate pins. I was like, plus there's a lot of things that pins don't work on, so I think it could work. You actually, when you went in Britex, you saw somebody clipping the back of a wedding dress, and what you said to them was, "No, no, no, you're going to ruin that dress. You need to meet my friend Paul." That's how I got that account. And I had said out loud, if I could get Britex, if they buy these, then I know it's a good idea.
Yeah.
So when I had their approval and they bought them, I thought, oh my goodness, this could be a real thing, and that was maybe like 2009, 2010. And then I got my licensing deal in 2014, and they still sell them to this day.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you gifted me with some, and I use them constantly. The
Yeah.
other thing that you need to talk about and let these guys know is about you being an instructor on Crafties, the online
Oh
teaching
yeah.
platform. You know, I love Crafties.
Yes. Craftsy is the first company that made my process a product they wanted to film me in draping class, me tearing muslin and draping and making a dress. And I'm like, but that's what you do at work. Nobody sees that part. They just see the dress. And they're
Right,
like,
right.
no, 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 no. You're going to show people how to build it from nothing. And I was like, oh, you know who got me that gig? The lovely Linda Maynard.
Oh,
They
that's right, because she's on there as well. She's one of the instructors.
Yes, and they offered her the draping class, and she said, "Draping is not really my gig." She's like, "But I know the best draper in the whole world. Would you like to meet him?" And she gave them my
Oh,
phone number.
I love Linda, and I've loved taking her classes as well. You know what, Audience City College Fashion Department has some of the most incredible instructors, including myself, mind you, with the things that we teach. I know that we have inspired and launched the careers of numerous students. Paul and I share one student in particular who we have an affinity for, Miss Ellie Arizon.
Miss Ellie.
And she's probably one of the most talented students, that I've known so far, but we do have some incredible students. I love watching them flourish, going out into the world. And Paul and I are definitely a part of that process with them. So,
Yeah.
Paul, now I would like to know a little bit about you. Like, where were you born and raised? Where did you attend school? And when did you land into San Francisco? So, tell us about you.
So I was born in Jersey City, which is like on the bay, kind of like here in San Francisco, but it's in New York. So right behind the Statue of Liberty. I always said that if the Statue of Liberty farted and the wind was blowing west, that's where the hospital was. It was right by the Statue of Liberty.
Ah,
And all my family came through Ellis Island. So both my grandfathers are Italian. One grandmother is French. One grandmother is Czech. And so I was raised in that area. We lived like in North Jersey, probably till I was about 4. We lived in upstate New York when I started school up in Beacon. And then we moved around. My father started out as a salesman for Dennison Manufacturing and ended up vice president. And every time he got a job promotion, we moved. So it was like New Jersey, New York, Maryland, back and forth, Virginia, DC, all in there. Um, so that's how I ended up going to FIT. Ironically, my father used to travel a lot for business, and we'd come home with these crazy stories of San Francisco. I had a San Francisco T-shirt, all this memorabilia when I was a kid. And so when it was time, when he was like, when I was in high school, he said, you're going to go to college. And I wanted to go to FIDM in San Francisco. I was like, I'm going to major in fashion and I'm going to go to school in San Francisco. And he would not let me leave at all. He was like, you're going to go to school in New York where your grandfather can keep an eye on you, and there's no way you're going to California unsupervised. So as a young person, I was told I was not allowed to go to San Francisco, which probably made it my dream. Like, well, one day I'm going to get there.
of course. That
And
forbidden fruit, huh?
yeah, and the leather thing came from always stealing my parents' leather jackets when I was a kid, and they would get really mad that I would wear their leathers to school. And I would say, well, then get me a leather jacket. And they're like, you're a kid. I'm not getting you a leather jacket. You're going to outgrow it. And I was like, well, then let me wear yours. Well, don't wear mine because you're going to ruin it. And so then I get into FIT finally, like after doing fine art in a community college. I get into FIT about 18 or 19. And my classmate, who's like the straight A brilliant student, is a leather designer from New Zealand named Tony Shannon.
Hmm.
So while I was still a student, she made my first leather jackets on me, and she could make the things that I could draw, even though I didn't know how to make anything. So that's how I got into that with her. But we did leather evening gowns, and she's the one that was smart enough and old enough to get us to Fashion Week. By no means did I do that. She really created that, for us.
But fashion, I mean, sewing leather jackets and leather gowns, leather, I just made my first leather purse, and I find it so difficult to work with.
Right.
You have to know the right foot to use. The plastic foot didn't work for me. I didn't like that at all. You got to
Yeah.
know the right needle. So to be able to make leather gowns, that means you're dealing with a lot of leather.
We did. We had all kinds of leather, and it was really hysterical because, I'm like 19, she's like 25. And so the leather supplier in New York just thought we were the cutest thing because, we're students. And we're like, we're having a line and we're going to Fashion Week. And he was from Italy, and he was so funny because he was like, you guys can't get all this stuff. So he would take us in the back and show us the cheapest skins that, you know, that would come in that he couldn't sell or were left over from another order. And he would give us everything at a discount, you know, and he helped it. Francois was his name. He was so nice to us. And I think that's also how we had such a wide variety of skins, because he was like, try snakeskin, try buffalo, try, you know, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was the one that was just drawing the gowns, you know, but she was showing me how to drape and how to put it together and all of that while we were in school. So that's how all of that happened.
You said something that I'd actually like to kind of piggyback on, because I think it's important, especially for our students, that to hear you, where you said you started at a junior college first.
Oh yeah.
So talk about that. I mean, that you were able to, did you go to a junior college first because you weren't sure what you wanted to do? Or what was the reasoning behind that?
Okay, so I have always been super faggy my whole life and have never been able to hold that in. So when you're a kid, it's very cute that you wear weird clothes and you dance around in heels and all of this stuff. But when you get to be about 13 or 14, that is not cute anymore, right? And so the people in school and in my family, you know, they would feel really awkward because I was just so over the top. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't help it. I couldn't, even when they would go, Paul, shh, you know, or don't wear that, you know, you're going to get in trouble. And I'd be like, oh, you don't like this? And I would put on something worse. You know, I was just like, it was like fashion as a weapon or rebuild, because I didn't have the words. I was too little to say, don't bully me or don't talk to me that way. I didn't know what that was. So all I knew was like, they didn't like how I was. So I was just going to lay it on a little thicker, which of course that did not go very well. And so in high school, I was like a target. Like everybody in school knew my name, but I only had like 4 friends, because it was very easy for the football team to come after me or anybody, because they knew I couldn't defend myself. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to fight. I didn't know how to do anything.
And you didn't have brothers? You didn't have a brother?
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So also there was no other gay people in my family. So I couldn't tell anybody like what was happening to me really, you
Okay.
know? So I stopped riding the school bus and I would hitchhike to school, but it was really far, you know? And
That's
then
dangerous, hitchhiking, especially as a kid even.
so in the snow, I mean, I don't know how my family let this happen or how I got away with it. It was so bizarre, but in the 11th grade, apparently, you know, something happened at school one day that was just so bad that when I came home, my mom said, how was school today? And I had like a nuclear meltdown. And I was like, I'm never going back in that building as long as I live. You can tell Dad, you can call the police. I don't fucking care what you do. I am never going back there as long as I live. And so she had kept it a secret for a bit. And then I had these 2 girls that I went to high school with were really close with me, Nora and Mari. And they had gotten very good grades in high school and were doing their senior year at the local community college. And so they told this lady about me and what was happening. And the lady, I guess, had an interview with me or something and got my transcripts and said, you know, you've taken so much drawing and pottery. I had taken all the art electives that even though I left in the middle of the 11th grade in like April or something like that, it was late enough in the year that I didn't fail the year. And so this woman, Susan Turner, I'll never forget her name as long as I live, figured out how to get me into community college on the credits that I still had in high school and earn my high school diploma while starting the fine art program. Because she was like,
Okay.
you're very talented, you know, because like my friends were like, he can draw, he can this, he can that. You cannot let this person get kicked to the side. Like they need to go to school. They need to be in some kind of art program. They just don't know it. Because, you know, when you're bullied and stuff, it wasn't like I was walking around going, I'm a great artist. You know, I
Right.
wasn't even speaking. They used to push my forehead up because when I walked, I would look at the ground. I couldn't even walk with my head up. You know, they were constantly pushing my forehead up, going, look where you're walking, pick your head up. I was just like, I was basically living in like this semi-state of humiliation or whatever, you know.
When you were young, so were your mom and dad, were they okay about you being gay? How did that work?
Well, no, I finally told them around 20. I had already gotten into FIT, was feeling a little bit myself, I'm like back in New York, but I finally got myself back in New York City, and I was alone, and I was in school, and I was running around with a bunch of queer people making clothes. So of course everything was suddenly fine,
Right.
like I found my way out, and so when I finally told them, my dad was like, "Oh well, I kind of thought that, but I didn't want to say anything in case I was wrong." And I was like, "You're the adult. What do you mean you don't want to say anything?" I was like, "Dad, you watched me do that, and you could have just said, you're a faggot, and that's what that is, But he was like, "Well, I didn't want to like say anything." And then my mom was like very Catholic and like had a really more severe reaction than he did.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I just sort of had to figure it out. I always said like as a joke, but I do think it's kind of true now that I'm this old. Everything I learned about being gay, you learned it either in a gay bar or from a share video. Like there was really no information. You just had to like go figure it out.
But no, so like, how old were you when you realized that?
When I said that to them, you mean?
No, no. How did you know that something was different about you? Like,
So they told me. The kids in school told me. I had no idea what that was.
okay,
Like
okay,
when
and
I was
then you didn't
in
have
ninth
anybody
grade,
to talk to.
I'm about 13 in the ninth grade. Is that right? About
Yeah,
that?
that's yeah, about
I'm
yes.
in history class, and there's this very cute boy named Peter Mason that sat in the row behind me. And so they decide they're having a party to celebrate the end of the year in our class. And so the teacher is trying to ask what everybody is bringing to the party. And when they say my name, I don't answer, like I don't know what I'm going to bring. And Peter Mason says, "Well, Gallo will bring the men." And everyone laughed. And so I thought, I'm going to bring the men. Like, what? My dad? Like, am I supposed to bring, like, do they want my grandpa to come? Like, I didn't know, No, yeah, girl, I was definitely a naive dingbat, which is probably why I was a very easy target. I didn't even know.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. But you know what, that bullying, I guess it still goes on, but hopefully it's getting better that that's not happening to kids now.
I don't know. The young ones I talk to, I don't think they have it any better, but I do think they have each other. There's
Yeah.
information online, but I don't think that it has curbed any of that behavior. And I see that now that, thank God the internet exposes everything happening around the world, you
Yeah.
just realize that this is happening to everyone.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not special at all.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened to me has happened to zillions of people. It just seems like everyone's going after each other. I didn't realize till, I was pretty old when I realized that the entire world was pretty much in combat. I was like, wow, they're after women, they're after gay people, they're after people of color. Like, is anyone not fighting? That's what I would
Right.
like to know. Where is the harmony?
Right.
That's
Right.
why I like the idea of like, when I first started my business here, when you have to write a business plan, there's the section of community service. What are you going to give back to the community you're getting things from? And so I had already done a drawing class a couple of times by then, and I thought, oh, then my community service should be drawing because I'm really good at showing people creative acts.
Yeah.
And for some bizarre reason, I didn't get this at the time, but somebody I worked with said, "You're very good at getting a group to a creative conclusion and you make it fun." And I was
Mhm.
like, "What's that?" And they're like, "You're kind of like a teacher. You just don't know it. You just think you're having a good time."
Yeah.
So then they taught me format and how to do a syllabus and how you build a lesson plan and all of this action, which didn't seem that weird to me because it seemed like building a garment. Or, I had also worked in theater, so that's staging a show. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end, there's performance time, there's tech week, all of that kind of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought, well, community service is it. And so when they called, it was very funny because Lorraine happened to be the head of the fashion department at City College when she called me. And she said, "Hi, I'm calling from City College and I got your name from Derek Piazza. And he said that you might be really good at doing an illustration class here." And I said, "Oh, what City College?" And she goes, "City College of San Francisco." And I said, "Oh, where's that?" And she was like, "Oh, did you just move here?" And I said, "No." And she's like, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "No." And she's like, "We're the big community college here. We have like 10 campuses." And I was like, "Oh, well, hooray for you. Yeah, I'll come meet you." So I go to the Ocean campus and meet her, and she's the one that hired me. So yeah, this is like the longest gig of my life. Like I have very different jobs, fashion related. Some are drawing, some are, some are draping, some are sewing, some are whatever. So it's very strange that anything lasts more than a year or two. So the fact that I've done like this gig in this place for 18 years is like, even my family's like, you're still teaching at City College? I'm like, I
You
am.
know what?
Like it
But
just didn't end,
oh, you know what's amazing to me? I
know?
really thought Diane Green hired you like she hired me and everybody else. So that's interesting that you weren't a Diane Green hire because you guys were very close too. So I
Yeah.
just assumed that she hired you as well.
No, but when she became chair right after I got hired, she was chair again. Lorraine stepped down and she stepped back in. And I mean, Diane Green was so good to me. I think that I still work there because of how she set it up.
Yeah, yeah.
She
I
was such,
miss her so much.
she
Yeah.
was such an interesting person to work with and always good ideas.
Hmm.
And such a lady. Like we became friends outside of work,
Yeah,
definitely. She was
yeah,
in my house, I was in her house. And that doesn't always happen with bosses. I had that with Camille as well.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
And you know what? And Natalie's like that with me. I'm actually very happy to see now that we finally got a person of color in there
Yes.
that's doing something. But I think we've been very fortunate that every single one of our department chairs have been phenomenal. They've been
Yeah.
incredible women. They've been incredible women. And what I like about our gig at City College, they let you do your thing. They let you teach.
Yes.
They're not breathing down your neck. They trust that you know what you're doing.
That's probably
Natalie's like, Kelly, you know what? I have a class and I know that you could make it work. So she gave me that new class, the one with the workforce, because she's like, I know you know how to put people to work. And
yes.
so being able to have that class, and I've had the best semester that I've had in a very long time.
This one went
So
really well, didn't it? I said that as well. I
yeah,
was like, since the transition to online, like somehow this one went really well. People
yeah.
really behaved. They really did good work, really good groups. I was very happy with it.
So Paul, what are you going to be teaching in the spring? What are your classes?
I'm doing draping, the 3D pattern making on the mannequin.
So
That's
can you
my
tell people
bias dress that
what
we just finished.
okay. Oh, okay. So that's the draping. So explain what draping is, because some people might not know what that
So
is and might be interested.
we start out with muslin, and we learn to work 3D on a mannequin making clothing. And so this class is aimed at women's wear. So we do a basic dress, we do a corset, foundation, we did a pegged skirt, and then at the end I teach them how to drape on the bias. And so we make a bias slip dress,
Oh, nice.
straps, and how to do French seams. Yeah, so that was really fun. And then I also do a class called Fashion Design 1. And in
Okay.
there, they design collections based on seasons. We also do an avant-garde collection. So in there, they have to illustrate and also choose fabric stories and color stories for their line. They don't actually make clothing in that class. They just design a lot. And then I do
Okay.
an intro to sewing class, which is a short 8-week, we start sewing by hand
Oh, I
and then
love it.
end up introducing different machinery. And then they do the same projects on the machine. And then we end with a creative work apron.
Oh, that is beautiful. And you know what? That was one I actually used to teach that intro to sewing class. I love the
Yeah.
hand sewing. That is my favorite. I love to hand sew.
It's
I
something
love embroidery, hand
about that
embroidery.
movement. Hand
Yeah.
sewing is a little bit like coloring or pet a
Yes.
cat. Like that movement, is very soothing for us.
Well, you know what? I'm looking at your shield, and the stitching and the seams on that are impeccable. My
These are
eyes keep going to it.
right on a sheer. You have to do French seams as well, which means
I'm
wrong
looking.
sides together first and then right sides together. And to make it pop a little bit more, I did stitch it in a really bright yellow thread to add to the rainbowness of
It's
it.
beautiful. It's
Thank
and I actually just finished. I'm still I got to just do the sleeves now. A real sheer leopard like
Oh, the
top.
leopard chiffon thing. I saw that.
And
Yes.
you know what? And so I had to do French seams on that, and you have to be so precise. You do that little
Yes.
3/8, then you come back and do that 1/4 inch, and I love it. So
Yes.
yeah, it was fascinating. So now let's talk about let's see your coloring book now. So I know that you are raising money on Indiegogo.
Yes, the
Can you
IndieGoGo
talk
campaign.
about why you are fundraising, and let's talk about your this the coloring book that is it follows your queer adult journey through from childhood to the pandemic. So you are
Uh,
taking this from the rain. So tell me, let's talk. You talk about it. Tell me about it.
so when they had us, go into shelter in place in March of 2020, all of my side jobs ended in that next 2 weeks. Like 2 years worth of work canceled in about 10 days, right?
Wow.
And I had been working for 40 years. So, I'm under the illusion that, I have built this, I'm doing this.
Right.
So when everything starts to end, I'm like, how can you work for 40 years and then be completely unemployed in 3 weeks? And my mind just kind of snapped. I just was like, oh my God, it's over. It's just over like that because of some virus. And so that was really bizarre for me. And I have a very good friend named Robert Hill that we did landmark education together in 2006 is where I met him. And so we always have had these really amazing conversations about possibilities. And he was around the Clip Project. The Clip Project came out of that conversation about what could be possible. And I had this idea that, you can sew without pins. I would like to invent this thing. And I developed that. And he saw me develop that, release it. He saw it become a success, all of that. And so we have very intimate conversations about things. And I guess that somewhere like in April or May, of 2020, I had a nuclear meltdown like the size of a tsunami. And I guess I called him. I don't remember this, but he said I went on for about 2.5 hours. He said, I don't even know this, Paul. He's like, hated the world, PO'd, angry, yelling. He was like, he's like, I'm holding the phone going, what happened to him? What the hell is going on with him? Because I was just like, how can life be over and you're just stuck in your apartment? It was just completely bizarre. So I guess I didn't see him for a couple of months. Whatever, we get our canvas training, we get on Zoom. I'm starting to drape on the mannequin in my, I just put the workroom into my living room. And so he says, how is it going with your online teaching? Because he said, are you working? And I said, strangely enough, the only gig that I have is the teaching gig. Everything else, no one ever called back. But I said, but I'm teaching online. And he goes, well, how do you like it? And I said, oh, I really like it. And he's like, what? What? And I was like, why? And he's like, don't you remember when you called me? And I was like, I called you when? Like I have like zero recollection of
Wow.
me
Yeah.
calling him or saying any of that. And he's like, Paul, hi, I'm the person that got to hear what happened to you when all your work canceled. He's like, and now you're okay. He's like, do you know how many people are not okay with the transition from the art world or the fashion world to the online world? He's like, you need to write a book about this and how you transitioned. And I was like, Robert, I'm not an author. And B, you don't write a book that helps other people while you're having a nervous breakdown. Those two things don't go together. What, I'm supposed to do interviews and talk to people? How the hell am I going to do that? Like I can't, no, like absolutely not. And I have an 8-year-old friend named Sky that I've known since this my friend's child, so I've known Sky since birth, basically maybe 3 months old. And now Sky is 8. And so we do a lot of art projects together. And so around this time with the conversation with Robert, I'm over at Sky's house and Sky gives me this fashion oriented coloring book that where people have taken all the famous models and designers and put farm animal heads on them. And it's called Farm Fashion. So it's like Giselle Bundchen, but she's a giraffe, you know what I mean? Or a porpoise or whatever. But from the neck down, it's designer, very fun to draw in color. And we had such a good time that the following Friday, Sky had one for me and said, I bought you a book because I noticed you were redoing their hair and their shoes. I'm putting lashes on everybody because I'm redoing the fashion illustrations because I like to draw. And she's like, I got you your own book and you can take it home and you can draw all over it and then bring it back and we'll color it in. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then the next morning I woke up and I started to doodle in the book and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It could be a coloring book. I don't have to write anything. It could be a coloring book. And so then that's how that thing started. So I was trying to draw the idea of the transition through it. And I'm also in an art circle where people draw live models nude from the San Francisco Art Guild. And two of these people in my art circle that invited me into it, I'm actually very close with. One is a textile designer, the other one is a clay artist. And so they built themselves a website and made a catalog for it and wanted my opinion on how they did. So she showed me her catalog and I was like, who made this book? This book is so stunningly beautiful. And she's like, I made it. And I was like, you made it? And she's like, yeah. And I said, how is your job going? And she's like, oh, Paul, I got laid off. I don't have any work. I said, how would you like a gig? How would you like to create a coloring book with me that looks like that book, but is my drawings, you know? And she was like, oh, I would love to do that. So her husband is a very, very quiet man, but like really cool, you know. And when he draws in like pastel, so it's all like, you know, our drawing styles are completely different. So they always say at the end of the session, they're always like, go look at Paul's pad because he probably turned you into a fashion model, or you have a rooster on your head, or you know, something's going on. Go look at his pad, see what he did to you. And so it was actually Joshua's idea that the first drawing I did in the book was the one of me as a little kid when my aunt had taken me to work with her. She was a fashion illustrator in the 60s. She had taken me to work. So this was the first drawing I did, but I brought to them and I said, this is my concept. My aunt took me to work with her when I was a little kid and she was an illustrator. And they put me at the desk and gave me paper and said, draw like the other artists, draw the models that are up on the runway. And I was like, okay. And I think that to me now as an adult, that's the day that I got brainwashed that when I grow up, I'm going to be like Aunt Patty and I'm going to draw models, you know? And so Josh said, where's the drawings from then, Paul? He's like, I don't want you to redraw the entire story. He's like, where are the drawings from your childhood? And I was like, I don't know, in a trunk somewhere. And he's like, go find them. And I found like 100 things. So at one point, this book was like, it was so thick. It was like 100 pages. And I was like, you guys, this is way too much. You know, I didn't want it to be an autobiography. I wanted to be more like drawing is healing and coloring is healing, and that artistic message. And so then we just went back and forth for months, you know. But they were very good directors that way because it's not their art, you know. So they were able to craft the books to where it went from childhood until now, but it's not 100 pages. I didn't have to write out, this is my sister's name, this is my brother's name, I had a dog, you know, blah. Who cares? You know, like I was like, the point is pick up the book and draw. And by the time you're done drawing or coloring, something good will have happened to you. So that's how all that happened.
Okay, that is so awesome. So now you're doing fundraising. Talk to me about that. And then you have different tiers of
Yeah.
levels that people talk about that for me.
So there's an IndieGoGo campaign on this book. And my idea was to go to street fairs here with it and to sell it, you know, to people I know and my students and my family, you know. But I work with a guy named Saul Sugarman who helped me build my Etsy and started to do like, wow, you're really talented. I should make drawing videos with you. Oh, I like the way you drape. We should shoot you like this. And he started coming up with ideas of ways to promote my business because he's a marketer, you know. And so all these other ideas he had, you know, this had already started to happen with Sandra and Josh making the book idea. So I was like, hold up on these other ideas because I'm about to come out with a coloring book and I would like you to use all your talent to help me do that. Because, you know, I can make the book, but I don't really know, you know, what besides sitting on Noe Street at the art fair, what else can I do to get this out in the world? And so he was the one that was like, no, you have to do an IndieGoGo campaign. And I was like, no, too public, no crowdfunding, nothing like that. No, I'm not, I'm a little too scared of that. You know, I've never done anything like that. And then he just kept being insistent about it. And so my friend who does children's books is Sky's mother. So I called Maya thinking, I know, I'm going to get Maya and I'm going to stick her on Saul and then I don't have to do this. So I go to her and I say, girl, this guy's trying to get me to do an IndieGoGo around my book and I'm supposed to do it on public, on Instagram and Facebook and tell the whole story and write it all out. And I said, isn't he insane? I was like, what can I tell him to make him stop? And she goes, oh, girl, I'm sorry. She's like, we've done this before for some of ours. She goes, and if this is your first book, you kind of have to do it. And I was like, what do you mean? You agree with him? And she's like, I agree with him. And I was like, I am screwed, So what can I say? Long story short, I jumped through a bunch of flaming hoops, didn't get burned, and now have a book on IndieGoGo, have some backers. I mean, the experience they've given me, I did not see coming. I was afraid of cancel culture or bullies or people saying terrible things about me, either, from anywhere,
Sure.
I was
Yeah.
afraid of all of that. But instead, really bizarre things are happening. Like the kids I babysat in high school before I went to FIT, buying 5 books at a time because they're like, remember him drawing on the kitchen table? Or my students in
Nice.
my class now buying things saying, oh, Paul, I came to your garage sale. I'll come over and pick the book up, and everything in between. Like my brother, my cousin, my 90-year-old uncle in Florida, like the third customer, like just
Nice.
it was such a lovely, lovely, lovely experience that like it was the universe's way of forcing me into something very uncomfortable that I did not want to do. And I was so based in fear of what could happen. It never dawned on me that this could happen, that it could be a great experience, But I'm having a really good time with it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So now what I would actually like to do is to segue out of that and ask you to name 3 people that have inspired you.
Ooh, like younger on to like
It doesn't
start.
matter, just anyone, however you see it, anyone that has inspired you.
I
3
was
people.
very inspired by RuPaul. Um, I have a lot of Bob Mackie damage because I grew up in the 70s. So Bob
Let's
Mackie was the
share.
designer of that moment. No, he did Carol Burnett. He did, shows in Las Vegas. He did Ready to Wear. So like, I was like, I met him at FIT. He came to talk to us students. So, in my mind, I was like, when I grow up, I want to be you, bitch. Like he was like so amazing, And when I met him, he basically patted me on the head, like as if I was just this excited dog that was trying to get a biscuit out of his pocket or something. Because I guess I was way too overexcited. I was showing him my portfolio. I think I was actually probably jumping up and down at the desk. I probably couldn't even stand still.
Yeah, that's
And he was
nice.
like, good luck, keep going. I was like, keep going. It's me. I'm meeting you. You're going to hire me. This is my moment. You're Bob Mackie and I love you. And he was like, next. I was like, like.
Oh, you thought you were going to have instant fame, huh?
Oh, girl, she was ready. She was ready for it. But
I love it.
anyway,
I
that
love
was a
it.
really big influence. I would say Erte. I have a lot of Erte damage, the illustrator from the 1920s. I was so young when I saw my first Erte drawings that I thought that people looked like that in the 1920s. So I was like, oh, wow, how cool to live then when everybody was so tall and skinny and wore all these really cool clothes. Like, I thought that stuff was real, So I was trying to draw that as well. But I guess the biggest breakthrough for me was Antonio Lopez, who was a very famous illustrator in the 60s and 70s worldwide, but he was based in New York. And when I was a teenager, he got a gig with Bloomingdale's where they put his fashion illustrations on the side of the big brown bag instead of the words big brown bag. It was like 4 girls with hair blowing in the wind. And it was just a black and white line drawing on the bags, but they were all over the city. They were everywhere. That was also like, that gave me the idea like, oh, I want my drawings on things, not just a drawing. I want to make it into a thing, So
Like, for example, show your blouse where you have your
so
drawings
like
on your.
this cover of the book is actually this piece up there that was done for a show on Haight Street a number of years ago, right? But when I did the show was when I first met Sandra, and she's a textile designer, so she turned her into a repeat.
Okay.
So
Yes.
now you can see how she's all over this, right? And also,
Nice.
well, I guess I can show you my pants too. She made a repeat of a man and made it into denim.
Okay. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So yeah, so she turns all of my stuff, like she's completely amazing, And right now also, Saul just turned.
But you made the pants though.
I made the pants, yes.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't make this. Like this came from Contrato. Like Saul designed this bag.
Okay.
So now I can go to my gig with my coloring books in a bag with the coloring book on it. I can get
Okay.
15, but yeah, he even did one with the back cover on it as well.
Okay, very
So
chic.
yeah, I really, really like this concept, so I like that other people like also see my drawings and make things out of it. You know what I mean? Like
That's
this
nice.
project with the coloring book is also, I've told my family and close friends, like this project is a great example of sometimes other people know what's better for you than you do.
Yeah.
Like I argued with him around a book concept. I argued with Saul around the IndieGoGo. I argued with everybody. Like I don't want to do it. It's not the right time. I was completely wrong. What if I hadn't listened to them? So I was like, this project was a huge lesson. And sometimes it's just keep your mouth shut and do the idea. Saul actually had to say that to me one day. He had to say, "Could you just stop questioning me and arguing with me?" And just do what I say so that we can get this done. And I was like, oh, I've said that to other people. Like if I'm doing something and I'm showing you, don't tell me how to teach you, right?
Right.
Just listen.
Yeah. And
So
you're learning a lesson, which is a good thing.
I'm getting good life lessons, yes.
So now tell me, what would the 9-year-old little boy Paul say to the grown man Paul now? What would he
Oh,
say?
bro, you did good. Because the 9-year-old was the one in the tie-dyed hip huggers riding around on I had the bike with the tall bar in the back. And like it was a gold metallic bike. I thought I was the baddest ass kid in the neighborhood. Riding barefoot, with my outfit on, and just think that was the greatest thing on earth. And so I think he would say, "Wow, we stayed ourselves pretty much the whole life." That's what my brother says. Is like he's like the most interesting thing about you is how incredibly consistent you are. You're exactly like you were at 10. Nothing has ever altered. You still want to put on an outfit, go outside and play, and you want to draw in your bed. You want something to eat. You want to go to the beach. He's like, you're just exactly the same.
Wow, that is beautiful. So Paul, you know what? I actually took a snippet off of your Facebook page of your video showing your coloring. Can I share that?
Oh, certainly.
Okay, so let me share that because I'd like for the audience to see your drawing. So now the key is finding it. Whenever you share something,
Yes, it's fine.
you have like 100 things.
Yeah,
on
he did an
here.
incredible job with the videos. I was really surprised how well they came out. And this is his favorite dress, by the way. He wanted me to do the entire campaign in this dress and asked and told me that I should wear this dress today for the interview with
Oh,
you.
you did?
And he's like,
Okay.
"You have to put the blue dress on," and I'm like, "Enough with the blue dress,"
Okay, wait a minute. I'm going to make sure I'm sharing the sound. Okay, so here goes.
Hello, I'm an artist, fashion designer, and teacher. I love art. I live in it. I have lost so much during the pandemic these past 2 years, but inside my home I was still surrounded by drawings that shaped my life and artwork that inspired me. Today I'm excited to share with you the culmination of that work. I've made a coloring book that illustrates so many life experiences. I've combined new drawings along with recreations of past moments as a teenager and many years as a queer person in New York and San Francisco. I'd love you to buy it and find ways to escape in drawing like I have, and I'd like to share my journey with you. Let me show you more about what's inside this book. This drawing, it is me illustrating my hand illustrating, which I love. It is also a copy of a picture by a famous photographer named Robin Lasser of my ex-husband and I in tent dresses. I drew the dress from the photograph and put him on my midriff as like my guardian because he is a very nice, grounded person. And the person I'm drawing down there is wearing a one-shouldered evening gown with an illustration on the front, and I have made those for many years in San Francisco. This coloring book is filled with nearly 50 pages of personal stories and experiences like the one I just showed you. I've done a few self-portraits at different ages to complement the story. I've shown some darker periods of life in the current pandemic, and I've shown some of the happiest moments of life. Now my biggest challenge is to see how far I can spread this message. I appreciate your support in helping me get this coloring book around the world, and I hope you're doing well however this period of life has affected you.
That's so nice. I haven't seen that one in a while. That was the very first one we did.
Okay. Okay. That was
Oh,
really,
good.
really nice.
And what was really bizarre about that video was, I guess when I was taking out photo albums to show him stuff, they're so old and the glue doesn't work. And I guess some pictures fell on the floor that I did not notice. And he picked them up, put them on the ironing board and shot them without me seeing it. Also, when he was shooting one day, we had to do it in multiple days. He came in and he was in a really bad mood, and he's a very happy guy, very chatty, and he was really quiet, and he was just like, hello, and he was just walking around my apartment with a camera, not saying anything. And I was like, what is he doing? And he's in the hallway, this and that. So when he's editing, of course, he's doing it so fast, I don't know what he's doing. So I don't see this video until like the one that you saw. I didn't see it till it's done. Right.
Okay.
And
Nice.
no say in it. He didn't, because at that point we're on deadline. So he knows better than to ask my opinion, because then I could choose if I want to say something. So he's like, you just shut up while I finish this.
He learned.
But the really cool thing is, the picture of the guy on the bottom is my very best friend, like that I met in detention in the 9th grade, first gay person I ever met, named Wayne. And there's a picture of me and him at about 17 in his house. How in the hell did that end up in my IndieGoGo video, right? And then he sees it on Facebook and he's like, did you see the picture of us at Tom's house? I'm like, did you see the picture of us at Tom's house? And and my art mentor's name is Mark Cohen. And there's a painting of his in my hallway. And because we were shooting in here, I had to move furniture into the hall. So Saul could only shoot one corner of the hall without getting the chairs. And then Mark and his wife are retired in Florida, and she sees the video and then says to Mark, your painting is in Paul's IndieGoGo campaign. So like my art mentor and my best friend, like without me saying a word, end up in my video. That's when I knew, like, this project, there's something magical going on here. Something really weird is happening. There's so much harmony going on. Like, wow, okay.
Wow. So
So
Paul,
thank you for showing that.
Oh, absolutely. So before we round out our segment, could you mention the classes that you're going to be teaching again in the spring?
Sure. That is draping, which is called Fashion 27. That is the 3D draping, where we take fabric and we get on a mannequin. Now I actually have added into that class draping on a human being, because in school we couldn't do that because of insurance. I wasn't allowed to bring in a stranger or something like this. They stopped me when I proposed, can I bring it? Because somebody in their underwear in a classroom being draped on. Well, it happens all the time in real life. You're not allowed to do that in a school situation, and I didn't know it. So now that we are remote, I can bring someone in here, and I've done it on a child, on a woman, on a man, on a big person, so I added in draping on a human being into that class. And then I have Fashion Design 1, which is where you learn all the habits of a fashion designer. So how to do rough sketches, how to pick out different fabrics for different seasons, how to do a color story, how to balance your color story, how to pick an inspiration for your collection, basically the habits of a fashion designer. So if anybody thinks that they want to do that, then when they take that class, by the end, they know, oh, like, I love putting collections together, or, oh my God, this is so much work, I hate it,
Yeah, that's awesome. So now, is there anything you'd like to say to the listening audience, like a reminder of when your campaign, your fundraising campaign ends? Because it ends soon.
It does. It ends on New Year's Eve, so I think we have 2 more weeks to go. It's called My Sketchpad is the Safest Place on Earth on IndieGoGo, and you can pick it up off of my Facebook, which is paulgallo.3, or my Instagram, which is paulgallosf, or at paulgallosf, I should say.
Is there anything else you want to say to the listening audience before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I would say that, the drawing is healing is my mantra, but it's also really like staying engaged with creativity and life I think it's a Khalil Gibran saying that says, even if you sit still, life will roll at your feet. And I had all these gigs out in the world and they all ended. But the thing I was doing was I was sewing in drag at Zips and Sews down on Sutter Street, literally in the window in an evening gown. This was in February of 2020 before lockdown, right? To do public classes, right? I also had a thing set up at Fort Mason to do the summer program of Drawing is Healing. I had written the class, right? All of that cancels out, but all of that same information is in this coloring book. I thought my ideas were going to go this way and I had these goals, and the universe was like, no. And when it got canceled, I felt like I was canceled, like what I was doing was irrelevant, and it was just taking a completely different form that I had never even thought of. But you know, before, when people said, would you ever do a drawing book, I was like, but I don't want it to be instructional. I would like it to be drawings that you would draw over, and then I would put affirmations in there to make the person think, more like a thought prompt than a story. So I had said that, you know, a dozen years ago as a possible concept. So I guess my message to the audience would be like, just keep your ears and eyes open. You never know what life is going to throw at you. And Dr. Carolyn Miss always says, what looks scary isn't. What looks fabulous isn't. And this is one of those. This looked like the scariest thing I was ever going to do, and it wasn't. And other things that I thought were going to go really well were absolutely horrifying. So I really thought I was going to do a face plant with this book. I thought I'm going to end up giving these to my friends and we're just going to have coloring parties. So I would say just believe in the magic of life.
Alrighty. Well, Paul, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
my guest on Straight Talking with Kelly, where real conversations happen. And to my listening audience, thank you for listening. And I cannot wait for you guys to come back and see who my next guest is going to be. So thank you. Goodbye,
Thanks a
Paul.
lot, Miss Kelly. This was really, really great. I've always liked talking to you, and it's really fun to do it in this format.
Yes, indeed. It's good seeing you.
Thank you. Have a beautiful
Uh-huh.
day and happy holidays.
Thank you.